A quick disclaimer before we start today. I recently accepted a project at a tech company, but I do want to mention that that has nothing to do with the content that I'm creating or the content that I'm creating on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, etc. They are pertaining to my postdoc work that is independent and has nothing to do with any tech company that I sometimes take projects to work on. So just wanted to make that distinction because there's no connection there. These are all purely mine and mine only. It's very independent work, has nothing to do with my tech job. Last time we talked about the stupidity and how that could potentially look like. In at least I took myself as an example, and two things was brought up that could potentially explain that sort of stupidity. One of them is that the more you learn, the more you realize that how much you don't know and how much you must learn. And the second part that was mentioned last time is the fact that we tend to spend a lot of our time and effort and energy on things, people, situations that really do not matter in our lifespan and for ourselves. And this, the latter part, I want to talk a little bit more about. And then after explaining that, I'm going into the electrical shock experiment that I just recently started and want to talk a little bit about that as well. There are specific parts of the brain, at least to our knowledge at this point in time, that pertain to specific type of actions and reactions that humans have that are correlated a lot with emotions. Emotions has nothing to do with gender. Both male and female exhibit a lot of emotions. In fact, a lot of studies shows that we are more of an emotional being as opposed to logical being. And the center of it all, at an eagle eye view, is the limbic system. Essentially, the limbic system is right in the center of the brain at the physical level. And at center of the limbic system is something called amygdala. And it's this tiny, the size is this big. But that's basically, essentially, quote unquote, the center of fear. That is when we choose to either fight or flight, basically. The limbic system and the amygdala that I just explained, it's really at an eagle eye view. In other words, it's much more complex than that. But for the sake of these short videos, we won't be going through them. But if you're interested, go ahead and read about them because we know pretty much a lot about how they interact. We don't know how they work, but we know that how we interact and how we exhibit those kind of emotional reactions that has to do with neural oscillations, neurotransmitters, etc. My specialty is in neural oscillations, aka brain waves, and that is what I did for my dissertation as well. And I connected the neural oscillations to information and knowledge seeking processes. Basically, I mapped those neural oscillations within a healthy human brain. Going back to the limbic system though, is that essentially during a normal lifespan of a human being, the limbic system is active a lot because again, we are emotional beings, and science has proved it over and over and over again. But we can also just observe what's happening in our lifetime. For example, if we look at a TV show and it's not dramatic enough or exciting enough, we tend to not look at it or watch it, I should say. Or if we watch or see or hear any type of content on social media, the ones that are able to get our attention more than the others are the ones who are actually more dramatic. In other words, they are able to sort of poke the limbic system, more specifically the amygdala, better than the others. For example, if we watch a content or hear a content, let's say a TikTok story or a YouTube or whatever on Twitter, if whatever that news is or information is, the ones that can make us more feel rage or any type of emotions are the ones that are able to poke the amygdala more. And so whoever has your amygdala has you, basically. And the amygdala, as I said, is in the middle of the limbic system, and the limbic system is responsible for a lot of emotions, not all of them, but a lot of them. And so that begs the question that at an eagle eye view, the more the limbic system is active, the more engaged we are. But at the same time, we're also more emotional. Hence, a lot of our decision makings are based on emotions. On the contrary, research has shown that the prefrontal lobe, more specifically here of the human brain, is what that makes a huge difference when we compare, for example, our brain with animals. Also, a lot of research has shown that the prefrontal lobe, which is right here in the front, again, have a lot to do with logical thinking, decision making, and forward-looking thinking. So in patients who have less active of prefrontal lobe activation, or maybe less healthy, they tend to make worse decision, if you will, or they cannot look too much forward thinking, hence the consequences is less clear to them. To simplify the matter, again, I'm really oversimplifying everything right now, is that the center of the brain, very simplified, the limbic system, really has us to do a lot of emotional things, emotional thinking, emotional decision making, regardless of the gender, by the way. But the more active the prefrontal lobe is the more logical we are and the more forward thinking we are. And we tend to also be more patient because we think about the decisions that we're making and the consequences that they may bring to us. So based on the very high level overview that I just provided, one could argue that the prefrontal lobe, the more activation in the prefrontal lobe, makes us a little bit more logical. Hence, in my case, again, I'm just talking about myself, the decisions that I've made in the past sort of less stupid. And because of that, and because my background is in neurooscillation as well as cognitive psychology, but I also have worked in tech a lot, I'm doing one part of my postdoc, again, independent. I'm not taking fund from anybody. In fact, I'm trying to make my postdoc as non-influential of other external facts as much as possible. And because of that, I'm experimenting just on myself. I'm not recommending this to anybody else to somehow experiment on my own prefrontal lobe and make it more activated by giving it more electrical currency or additional electrical currency, and see whether over a specific point in time, whether that could help my prefrontal lobe act. And then I'm going to look, based on the increased activation in my prefrontal lobe, how my state is changing. Does my state of being change? Does my state of emotional being change? Do my decision making change, or my thought pattern change? And so that is basically the whole idea. And again, because I have background in it, I'm going to be very careful to not damage myself and my own brain. But I do not recommend anybody to do this unless you have background in neuroscience. Please don't do it. Or if you're working with a doctor or a medical doctor. So this is just for myself. And I'm just doing this on myself, and I'm gonna just basically see what's gonna happen to me. And so to actually create a device that gives electrical impulses is very easy. If you know what you're doing, it doesn't cost more than $30. But I'm in a very transitional situation right now, and I don't have the opportunity or the means to actually take out all my tools and create the device. So I ended up buying one, and these are the sponges basically that you end up putting on your forehead, and also this is the device that basically once you start it, you can choose the strength of the currency that it will give. And by putting these on my forehead, I'll be able to create or add those electric currency to my forehead. This idea also came about because I'm very interested in cyborgs, but a lot of solutions that is existing out there right now, they are invasive. In other words, you have to make implants into the brain, and not so many solutions are out there that is non-invasive. And so that's why I'm doing this experiment, because I want to see that mimic the potentiality of having a cyborg brain. In other words, having some implants in the brain, what could it potentially do to me? So instead of me doing an implant into my forehead and adding electrical current via the implants or the chips, I'm sort of mimicking and putting these sponges on my forehead instead, and add electric currency to see how it goes. I'll keep you guys posted in terms of how I'm going to design even this study, because whenever you do an experimentation, you also need to design the, for example, how much time, how much electrical currency I'm going to give, and things like that. So we're going to go into the electrical part of it, electrical currency part of it a little bit as well. And I'm going to share, of course, with you every step of the way how that goes. And obviously this channel is, we're just talking about the brain. I'm not asking anybody to do anything. And also this is for information and educational purposes only. There is no medical advice here of any sort. And because I'm a neuroscientist, or at least have a neuroscience background, my degree is in neuroinformation science, I'm able to kind of poke around and experiment a little bit. But and I'll definitely share that with you. So until next time.